My name's Jon Dell, and I'm really happy to be back here at Reggies in Chicago. All right. Thank you so much for having me. The song's about being a fucking idiot. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I ran into an old lover today. She nearly threw a fit. Said, what the hell happened to you? You look like absolute shit. Oh, darling, you know I never meant to hurt you. Forgive me, honey, didn't mean to desert you. I never knew that I meant so much to you. I said, I'm sorry, what was your name? It wasn't that big a deal. It takes more than one silly old flame to make me feel how I feel. I got so many things that constantly haunt me. I couldn't care less that you didn't want me. Darling, please don't flatter yourself. Oh, don't flatter yourself. Could just as easily be somebody else. You really ain't all that high on the shelf, and it's so easy to fall. Don't stick your nose up high, 'cause we'll all be the same by and by. Every one of us is gonna die, so please don't flatter yourself. Saw a guy begging on the street. Even to me he looked low. He said he just wanted something to eat, maybe a place to go. Well, I slipped him a 20 and walked on by. He'll probably spend it on drugs, but so would I. So this one's to you, man. I'm drinking to your head. Just as easily be somebody else. You really ain't all that high on the shelf, and it's so easy to fall. Don't stick your nose up high, 'cause we'll all be the same by and by. Every one of us is gonna die, so please don't flatter yourself. Everybody shits the bed when they die, so please don't flatter yourself. Thank you. Well, like I said, I'm very happy to be back here at Reggies. I used to work here 16 years ago, man. 16 years ago. That doesn't even seem possible. I'm getting old. I really am getting old. I'm really starting to feel it too. I thought I twisted my ankle in my sleep the other day, but it turned out that was just the gout. Anybody else here got gout? Nobody? I got diagnosed with gout when I was 32 years old, which I think is too young to get gout, but I got it. And for those of you who've never experienced that before, it feels like you got broken glass in your joints, man. It really hurts. And I had like 3 attacks, really bad ones, within a 6-month span. So I went back to the doctor and I was like, I'm gonna have to quit drinking, aren't I? And she goes, no, you don't have to quit drinking. She goes, you can just manage it with moderation. I was like, well, I don't know what gave you that impression. But she goes, no, it's easy. She goes, you just, when you go out to eat, When you go to the bar, instead of 4 beers, have 2 beers. And when you go out to eat, instead of, 2 slices of pizza, have 1 slice of pizza. And there was this little pause, and I was like, kind of looked at her, and she was like, do you have any questions? And I was like, no, I just can't believe those are the numbers you think I'm working with here. Well, my grandfather used to work the mines, toiled and labored till the day he died. The man was prickly as a short-leaf pine. Only one time I ever seen him cry. Whoa, run away, boys, run away. Whoa, you know the hanging wall caved in today. Well, Ma was cooking supper when we heard the shouts. Saw her face run white with fear. My uncle and my father never made it out. Grandpa choking on soot and tears. Whoa, whoa, run away, boys, run away. Oh, you know the hanging wall caved in today. On the day that I turned 17, I up and ran away. Since Daddy died, ain't nothing been the same. And Grandpa's laying in the ground where he spent his working days. If you listen close, the rock still calls his name. Whoa, run away, boys, run away. Whoa, whoa, you know the hanging wall caved in today. Thank you. Well, I'm just wrapping up about 3.5 months on the road. I've been living out of my car since the beginning of May, and I'm finally heading back to Brooklyn, New York, where I live. Every single New Yorker simultaneously has a love-hate relationship with that city. I was out in California a couple years ago, and I was working on a buddy's pot farm, and there was this guy out there named Brandon who was a folk singer from Memphis. And he goes, oh, you're a folk singer from New York City, huh? He goes, do you know a guy named Wyndham Baird? And it just so happened I do know Wyndham. I had done a couple shows with him, and he had just done sound for me not long before that. And I was like, yeah, I know Wyndham. Wyndham just moved back to Memphis and then moved immediately back to New York. And he goes, oh, yeah, man, that Wyndham, him in New York City, it's like an abusive relationship. He just can't quit New York. And I was like, shut up and get me a pen. I didn't want to come here, never thought that I would. I won't tell you what I thought of this town, but it wasn't nothing good. but nothing ever changed my mind like a pretty girl could. So here I am walking these streets where there used to be woods. It hasn't been easy, but nothing is. That city skyline still makes me feel like a kid. Like an abusive relationship, I just keep coming back for more. I can't quit you, New York. I was never gonna make it some Broadway star, but you can hear me singing my songs in a Red Hook bar. Yeah, you can run away from home, but not who you are. Who'd have ever thought this country boy would make it so far? It hasn't been easy, but nothing is. That city skyline still makes me feel like a kid. Like an abusive relationship, I just keep coming back for more. I can't quit you, New York. I just keep coming back for more. Oh, I can't quit you, New York. Like an abusive relationship, I just keep coming back for more. I can't quit you, New York. Thank you. Well, I was living in New York during the pandemic, and that was just about the craziest time that you could have lived in New York City, at least in recent memory. Every single day, we lived right next to an assisted living facility, so every day we would see people getting brought out on stretchers and hooked up to ventilators and stuff. It was pretty fucking scary. And then in the middle of all that, the George Floyd protests started happening. And when that happened, man, it really felt like that city could burn to the ground at any second. But in the middle of all of that chaos and violence and disease and stuff, there was something that I kind of took a little bit of hope in. And that was that when George Floyd was murdered, millions of people took to the streets to try to raise their voices against something that was unjust. And I thought that was pretty cool, and it felt historic to me. You know, I had never really lived through something like that before. And I felt like, man, maybe this is it, you know? Maybe this time something's really gonna change. And then I went back to Nebraska, and it was just a different vibe back there, man. I'm just gotta tell you, it was really bumming me out. So me and my wife packed up all our shit and we went up to Glacier National Park. And on the way up there, I wrote this song. Oh, honey, put your makeup on and let's go out dancing. These tears will find another time to fall. Let's pack up all our things and get out of these planes. and go where we won't know no one at all. I've spent most of my life feeling sad and feeling angry. I long to go and follow nature's call. Oh, come wind or come rain, we'll outrun all this pain, and we'll head up to the mountains in the fall. Take me away from here. I wanna be on higher ground, up where the air's clear. I ain't ever coming down. The last years have been filled with all of this trauma and violence, and the rise of all these things that I can't stand. It's been sister versus mother, and brother versus brother. It's enough to make you throw up your hands. I don't know a single person who doesn't feel anxious. I don't know a single one who's never been abused. But every single time that I turn on my TV, I can't help but feel like we're all getting used. Oh, take me away. I wanna be on higher ground, up where the air's clear. I ain't ever coming down. Oh, enough with all of this death, and enough with all of this violence, enough with all of these cries for help being met with silence. So I just want to float away. Honey, put your makeup on and let's go out dancing. These tears will find another time to fall. Thank you. Well, I don't got to tell anybody here what a crazy couple of years it's been, both in our country and around the world. But in the midst of all of this chaos that we've all been going through, everybody's still also been going through their own personal things, their own personal tragedies. In 2020, right after the pandemic started, my family got the unfortunate news that my brother-in-law had been diagnosed with bladder cancer. And it was about a year from his diagnosis until he lost his battle with bladder cancer. And after he died, I was talking to my niece, and she told me this story about when she was a little girl growing up on the farm back in Nebraska. And she told me when she was a kid, the thing she wanted more than anything in the whole world was a horse. She said her dad had told her all these stories about all his adventures on horseback, going across the plains and up into the Rocky Mountains. And then one day when she was about 9 years old, her dad came and picked her up in the truck, and he took her to the horse auction. And she said the whole way they were going there, he was telling her, Riley, don't get your hopes up. We're not buying you a damn horse today. So she got it in her head that it wasn't going to happen. But they got there to the barn, and they started walking through the stalls. And she said she came across this one Palomino gelding horse. And she said she just fell in love with it. She sat there the whole afternoon just petting it and talking to it. Then her dad came and he got her and he told her, okay, it's time to go to the auction. So they went into the arena there and she was watching all the livestock get brought out, and all of a sudden here came that horse that she had fallen in love with. And she said she just couldn't take her eyes off of it. She was just absolutely glued to this horse. And she was so obsessed with this horse that she didn't realize the entire time her dad was standing behind her and he was bidding on it. And she didn't realize what was happening until she heard the auctioneer say, "Sold to the man in the black felt hat." And she said she turned around and her dad had this big old smile on his face. And he said, "Okay, Riley, he's yours." And she said she just burst into tears immediately. And she told me that was the first time in her whole life that she'd ever cried from joy. She said that was her favorite memory of her dad. She asked if I could turn that story into a song, and this is what I came up with. I was feeding the horses before the sky went black. Yeah, the smell of manure always brings me back. It got me to thinking about when I was a kid, and how nobody ever knew me like my daddy did. We didn't expect much growing up on the farm. When I was 9, my daddy took me to the auction barn. He said, "Don't get your hopes up. We're only here to look." Yeah, he could always read me like a paperback book. He'd say, "Get back on that saddle, girl, ride free and wild, and think of the day nobody ever saw a happier child." As we walked past the horses, passing stall after stall, you know I couldn't help but fall in love with them all. But then, as if it were written, or it was meant to be, I came to Palomino gelding lot 103. His nose was so soft, and in his eyes a song. And just like my father, he was gentle and strong. I might have spent the whole day there. How long, I don't really know. And then my daddy took my hand and said, "It's time to go." Oh, he'd say, "Get back on that saddle, girl, ride free and wild, and think of the day nobody ever saw a happier child." Oh, now daddy's up in heaven, his race on earth is done. He's riding up in glory with the Father and the Son. And though my heart is broken and I don't know what to say, when I think of my father, I'll always go back to that day. We went back to the sale barn and we sat up in the stand. The auctioneer spoke a language I did not understand, but I could feel the tension. I've always understood that. And then I heard sold to the man in the black felt hat. Oh, he'd say, get back on that saddle, girl, ride free and wild. And think of the day nobody ever saw a happier child. Oh, think of the day nobody ever saw a happier child. Finished feeding the horses, put on my father's hat. Yeah, the smell of manure always brings me back. Thank you. Thank you. I always feel like I got to tell a joke after that one. So this guy walks up to a bartender. He says, I would like 5 shots of your most expensive bourbon, please. The bartender says, okay. He pours them out. The guy just starts throwing them back one after the other, just like boom, 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 boom. The bartender goes, whoa, man, slow down. He goes, why are you drinking like that? The guy goes, aw, man, you'd be drinking like this too if you had what I have. The bartender gets kind of concerned. He goes, well, what do you have, man? The guy goes, about $2. All right, let's see. What time we got? All right, I have time for normally an excruciatingly long story. I'm going to try to condense this a little bit. Okay, so I was adopted. My folks adopted me. It was all set up before I was born. But a couple years ago, I got a message from a woman on Facebook. I was on tour out on the West Coast, and she told me she thought she was my biological sister. So the next time I went on tour, I routed it down through Lubbock, Texas, where she's from. And before my show, her and I went out for a cup of coffee and started to get to know each other a little bit. She told me my biological father had been looking for me. But she said, if you're not comfortable with that, I won't give him your name. And so I was like, right now, I don't think I'm comfortable with that, so I would appreciate that. She said, okay, no problem. A couple more years went by, though, and then she sent me another message on Facebook, and she said, hey, he's still asking about you all the time. And he's getting kind of old, and he's not in the best of health. So, if this is something that you think you might like to do someday, maybe now's a good time. So I had just turned 30, and I was like, okay, I think I'm ready. Let's do it. So he and I started communicating back and forth, and immediately noticed some interesting similarities between each other. My folks who raised me are very sweet people, but neither of them have a musical or artistic bone in their bodies. One time when I was a kid, my mom said to me after church, she goes, you know what I appreciate about your father is when we sing hymns in church, your dad always sings the harmonies. And I had to inform my mother that those were not harmonies my dad was singing. My dad is tone deaf as a stump, and he couldn't find the melody. But Bob down in Texas, Bob is a musician and also a writer. So the way we got to know each other is we just sent our art back and forth. He sent me a couple novels and a collection of short stories he'd written, and I sent him my albums. And over the years, we've become friends. And I think that's pretty cool. When I was getting ready to write the songs for this last album that I did, I got an email from him, and he said, hey, I got this one short story that I always thought would make a good song. Would you have any interest in writing that song? And I said, absolutely, because that just happened to be my favorite story of his. So here it is. This is Escape of the Foxes, based off the short story of the same title. by a guy named Robert Campbell down in Odessa, Texas. This is going to be my last song for the night. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, all of you, for listening. I appreciate it. I got one record left this whole summer. If you buy it from me, I will have sold every record I brought on this tour. I brought like 150. Yeah, not bad. Yeah. All right, this is Escape of the Foxes. Thank you so much. One day, when I was a boy on the verge of becoming a man, I spent the day on my grandpa's farm. He said he needed a hand. Half a mile up the road in an irrigation ditch, some foxes had made a den. He said, I hate to kill them, son, but if I don't, they'll eat my hands. And wild things ain't meant to live in cages. Wild things are born to run free. And I know you ain't seen me in ages, but there's still some wild in me. We fired up the pump, it was loud as hell. The water began to raise. Somehow the mama fox got away, but we trapped the daddy in a cage. Take the cage to the house, Grandpa said. I think he wanted the pelt, but the whole damn time all I could think was how that poor fox felt. Because wild things ain't meant to live in cages. Wild things are born to run free. And I know you ain't seen me in ages, but there's still some wild in me. Well, I was told to leave the cage on the porch, wash up and come inside. I felt so bad for the fox's fate, so sad its babies died. Now I was raised to mind my kin and respect what my elders know, but I reckon that they don't know everything, so I let that poor fox go. Because wild things ain't meant to live in cages. Wild things are born to run free. And I know you ain't seen me in ages, but there's still some wild in me. Yeah, there's still some wild in me. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm Jon Dell. I love you. I wish you the best. Let's drink some Malort.